Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of the latest episode of Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 3. And I enjoyed this episode a lot more than the previous two. However, there are still issues that pop up and occur throughout this episode that is just like, what? Why? Okay. Continue. But overall, it was definitely an interesting look into Vader and Obi-Wan as they do clash in this episode, and that's about the main part of it that really gets good attention. We do get some nice moments also between Kenobi and Leia as they kind of feel each other out more on the whole kind of situation that they're in. Well, we begin off and we see this real kind of cool suit-up sequence of Vader as we see the arms being put on him, his legs, his whole suit and everything like that. That was very well done, and you see him just walk off. Pretty much get a situation update from Reva as she's pretty much still trying to curry favor with him, and you're like, yeah, the Grand Inquisitor, all that kind of sucks. He's like, listen, you get Kenobi, you're the Grand Inquisitor. You don't, I kill you. And Vader's not fucking around, seeing him in his Mustafar castle and everything. Then he kind of like turns off the stuff, and she's like, yeah, okay, and he goes and kind of looks off. We shift over and we see Obi-Wan trying to commune with Qui-Gon Jinn, but getting nothing, and he's just like kind of at a loss for words. This person he thought has been dead for 10 years has been strutting around being an asshole, and we do not he definitely upgrades his assholishness in this episode. Leia, she asks how much longer and everything like that, but she doesn't ask like the typical kind of kid. Like, we don't know that she's been pestering Obi-Wan, and like Obi-Wan's like, I don't know, Leia, I don't control this, so we'll get there when we get there, kind of thing. And then we see that he's been tinkering, and he fixed Lola for her, and she thanks him for it, and it's like a cool little thing. He's like, yeah, because he has nothing against the kids. It's not their fault that they are the offspring of someone that betrayed him, and he just feels off with that kind of. You can see that kind of unease and tension in him of like, these kids didn't do anything wrong, but he still has the trauma of everything that's happened from the Clone Wars and everything, and that still kind of colors how much he wants to keep him at a distance. So they're able to sneak off as droids are kind of unloading the cargo and everything. They get to the supposed rendezvous point, and Leia's pretty much bringing up possibilities that the person could be late, anything like that. Obi-Wan is jumping straight to distrust, and I don't knock him for that. He's had a traumatic event. His clone troopers turned on him. Jedi are hunted throughout the galaxy. He really does not have much to afford in the way of waiting for that kind of stuff. And Obi-Wan's just like, all right, let's kind of just make our way to like the spaceport, and he wants her to be quiet, and just mainly so that way they can just get through with as minimal amount of effort as possible. However, Leia's like, all right, I'm gonna do this stuff, and she just goes up. She's able to pretty much get the whole stick down between her and Obi-Wan with this Frick dude, and I came to find out when I like looked up that this dude is JD from Scrubs. I'm like, oh, that's a kind of cool little thing. But they get on, and we see that this person's pretty much with the Empire. We see that Obi-Wan has also been talking about the planet and how it used to be farms and everything like that, and then the Empire came and did their stuff. Leia's like, well, shouldn't the Empire be helping? And he's like, yeah, not so much. And that there are still some good people like Bail Organa who's trying to like help and turn the worst parts of the Empire around and stop them from being like a dictatorship and shit like that. But Obi-Wan is kind of questioning how much that kind of works out. So I did like them having that kind of back and forth, and that Leia is not stupid on this kind of stuff. Now, granted, she is doing kind of kid stuff, but however, she does understand the gravity of being a princess of Alderaan and being in the Organa name. She definitely keeps up with information, even though she gets very limited information. So I do think they at least strike enough of a balance that she doesn't come off as a complete I'm adult in a child's body kind of like vomiting shit, or like I'm just a complete like nerve bundle of impulse and I'm gonna touch everything and poke everything and shout and scream for sugar kind of hellion child that sometimes you get. She's at least a balanced actual character of like, okay, she's a little kid, she's still trying to figure shit out, but she does know some shit and will try and do some stuff as well. So they're pretty much riding in this dude's kind of truck and they're trying to keep everything kind of straight. They pick up some stormtroopers and everything. They've been tasked with, of course, hunting the Jedi because Reva went and tasked the rest of the Inquisitors with sending out probes and everything. And in that part, we also had gotten some nice kind of inner politics, even though it didn't. I at least appreciated the attempt. However, what I got from it was essentially, even though it was probably unintentional, more of a Spaceballs vibe from it. What I mean by this is, they're trying to figure out what to do next. The Grand Inquisitor was dead. She's, of course, pulling at that. Obi-Wan did it. And they're like, all right, what do we do next? And Reva's like, all right, I talked with Vader. We hunt Kenobi. We send out probes and everything like that. And Fifth Brother's like, I'm the next in line. Yeah, stop. And the vibe I got was like, you went over my helmet? Dark helmet kind of shit. And he, of course, used the Force on his way to kind of display his dominance and everything like that. And you're like, yeah, you better know your place. And him and the other Inquisitor kind of leave. And an interesting kind of part is Reva's like, I'm going to get what I deserve, or like what she's owed, kind of, as she's kind of looking at the chair. But I'm not quite sure if it's as simple as that. It made it the way it was played and the way she kind of acted that she's almost making it seem like she wants the Grand Inquisitor kind of thing. I don't know. That's just kind of the vibe I got. But that's the only kind of instance that I got that there could be more to her with that. Everything other than that is just complete kind of Inquisitor, not much kind of stuff there. The best kind of stuff we got is the interplay here with the Inquisitors to get more of it. But other than that, you're just like, all right, who kind of else is she as a character? You kind of need a little bit more there. However, I'm more interested in the Obi-Wan and Leia stuff. Okay, so now that I kind of filled that back in, we get them kind of like talking with the stormtroopers. Obi-Wan kind of messed up and called her Leia. However, they were able to do it a little bit better and make up for it by making that sound like the wife's name, and that she died, and that he kind of confuses her. The stormtroopers are like, all right, if you ever see anything, let us know, as they kind of buck out. And then we get a nice kind of little thing of that Leia's like, you knew my mother, didn't you? And he's like, yeah. And bringing up like the good qualities that she has. And she point blank asks him if he's her father, and he's like, no, but I kind of wish I was, because of who your father actually is. And it was kind of interesting. And then he brings up his family and that he remembers that there's a baby there, that he has like a brother or whatnot, but he doesn't know because of when he was taken to be trained as a Jedi. Kind of cool to get a little bit more into that. We see that the truck driver kind of dude takes him to a kind of checkpoint, and that he's talking with the stormtroopers and pretty much, yeah, I got a bad vibe off of them, turning these people in to the Empire because he's for the Empire. And then Obi-Wan kind of tries to deal with what he can, utilizing the blaster pretty effectively. Leia does get captured at one point, but Obi-Wan is able to shoot him down. We do get a nice effect where a stormtrooper is shot and then falls through this kind of laser gate and gets chopped. It's like, god damn. But the effects were pretty well done. I'm like, there you go. If you're going to do it well and do it right. So I definitely got to give props on that. And the thing is, they're going through, but then because the probe had got Obi-Wan, he shot the probe down. That kind of kicked off the whole kerfuffle. So Reva and everybody knows that they're on this mining world, so they go off to it. As they're pretty much being stopped by the rest of the garrison reinforcements, we see that the person in the Imperial officer's uniform shoots the two stormtroopers, which is kind of interesting because it's played by the actress who was in Game of Thrones, who watched Oberyn Martell's head get popped. and was part of that whole Dorn kind of thing. So it's like, hey, good for you. So she's pretty much like, yeah, Haja told me that you guys were coming and you weren't there, and everything's kind of a mess, but they do have a transport off-world. It just might take a few hours to do that, so you might have to hide out or whatnot. And she gets them into this kind of like droid repair center that's kind of automated, so that way they can have minimal kind of eyes on them as possible. So she's pretty much getting them in there, explaining to them that it's called the Path, that they is pretty much like an underground railroad for Jedi and others that are trying to escape the influences of the Empire. Her name's Tala. We get that a little bit later, but we see that messages from other people have been left, and we get one from Quinlan, who's Quinlan Voss, who's an important kind of character introduced in kind of like the Clone Wars kind of era and everything. So that was a nice kind of Easter egg, and for Kenobi to kind of pick up on that. And they're pretty much waiting out. Leia's, of course, talking with her, asking her if it's scary to pretend all the time. She's like, in the beginning, I'm just trying to make up and atone for some of the stuff that happened. And yeah, it's kind of scary, but it's kind of worth it. So, all right. She's like, okay, cool. And they're pretty much getting ready to do that, but then, of course, nighttime and comes on, and we see that Vader and his Inquisitors have popped up, and Vader is not going to let Kenobi go. He sees that he's not being pretty much drawn out, so he starts using the Force and killing people. And this is where we start seeing like Vader being pretty much tasked like a movie monster, kind of similar to Rogue One, where he just does not give a shit, and he is going to hurt the person that hurt him. And I'm like, all right, however, you were warned, and you decided to do a backflip, like a flip, that would pretty much expose you, and you got, like, Obi-Wan chopped off the rest of your limbs, but you put yourself into a position where it's like, you've been trying to kill me for however long that battle's gonna be going on. Why in the ever-loving fuck would I let you get up top here? I mean, like, Obi-Wan could have just, granted, he was, pretty much going for his limbs would have been the best kind of bet because of, like, how balled up Anakin would have been. And honestly, I don't blame Obi-Wan for pretty much just leaving him there, because he was pretty much toasted by the lava, and now granted, I would have probably been keeping tabs on what kind of information was coming into the Empire, and if somebody was kind of, Lord Vader? Darth Vader? What the fuck? I thought you was fried by the lava. But that's me. I'm a weird kind of dude in that, like, if I had Hermit, I'd still be, like, feelers for, like, information and shit. But we see that Vader is pissed, which, yes, most of the time we've seen him within the rest of the kind of trilogy. Anger has been a part of him. However, this is still kind of like real anger that he wants Kenobi. This is a driven, pissed off motherfucker that is not really as focused. I mean, he's kind of focusing like, I'm trying to draw Kenobi out, and he's pretty much killing and just hurting people as much as possible. And Kenobi's able to pretty much utilize the Force to kind of draw him away, and tells Tala and Leia to pretty much go through the tunnel. This is where I could have missed something or whatnot. I thought this was like a one-way tunnel to this kind of runway place for the ship to take them off world. Why does that confuse me? Well, Tala and Leia are like going and everything, and then at one point Leia's like, go back, bring him back, okay? She's like, alright, cool, and goes back. Reva, like, Vader kind of skirts off because Obi-Wan's pretty much drawing him off. Reva kind of gets in at some point, gets in there, sees the whole kind of spiel, and is going through. And as she's at pretty much the beginning of the tunnel, she starts going in through the tunnel, and at that point, Tala should have, like, passed her or whatnot. However, Tala somehow gets out of that place without meeting up with Reva, and evidently Reva somehow gets out in front before Leia, because the episode ends and Leia's at the end, and Reva's pretty much killed the person that was supposed to pick him up, and she just goes after Leia, and that's kind of where it ends. And I'm just like, how the fuck did she get there? Because Tala gets out someplace and doesn't run into Reva. Reva somehow goes through a tunnel and gets to the end of it before Leia. Now, granted, I understand a 10-year-old child would not be able to cover as much ground as fast as a grown adult. However, if it's a one-way tunnel, that either that's what I was led to believe. Now, granted, I might have missed something, and it could have been a multitude of network of tunnels, but I didn't see anything. So, Reva being able to somehow overtake Leia and get to the end of the tunnel before her without seeing her and already catching her was just fucking weird and some kind of oversight. I don't mind if she got to the end of the tunnel, like figured out, oh, this is this tunnel. Random Imperial person, where does this pop off at? Probably about there. And then she just and went someplace else. Went to the end of the tunnel without going in the tunnel. But it was kind of led to believe that she went into the tunnel to get to the end of the tunnel. I know I'm making kind of a big deal about it, but it fucks around with it when it's how did Tala get there? How did Reva get here? Alright, whatever. So that's the biggest kind of fucked thing that kind of happens here. While this is going on, we see that Obi-Wan is running kind of away from Vader, and then Vader pops up, calls him weak, and is attacking him with his lightsaber, but Obi-Wan is just, of course, he's out of practice. He really hasn't used the Force for combat in years, and Vader's pretty much getting ready to kind of rip him apart, and Obi-Wan's putting up just the barest of defenses, and is pretty much trying to run away from him. And he turns on the lightsaber. We see him trying to look for him, but then Vader kind of pops off on him, and he's like, now your suffering will begin, as he's pretty much force choking him. He put this is where Vader fucking goes shit, man. Now granted, Vader is horrendous and horrible, but here he puts down these kind of stone kind of things, lights them on fire, and starts dragging Obi-Wan through them and burning him. That is fucked up. And just typical kind of Vader Anakin kind of shit when he's up his own ass like that. Yes, it's all Obi-Wan's fault, and you're gonna put that suffering and your trauma onto him because that makes you feel in control and that you can get some kind of shit back. Never mind the fact that you listened to a Sith Lord of Palpatine doing stupid fucking shit because you just trusted him for stupid shit, and you were hung up on not being a Jedi Master and all this other kind of bullshit, and you're just hurting this person because you think it's going to make you feel good and better, and it's just it was just yep, that's definitely what Vader would do, you asshole. And of course we see the rest of the stormtroopers kind of pop up around. Tala, of course, shoots around, and Vader's what the hell? And Tala's able to drag Obi-Wan away, kind of help him with his wounds and whatnot. And Vader's looking on menacingly. And, by the way, of course, James Earl Jones returns to do Darth Vader's voice throughout all of this, and that works out very well. I'm yes, alright. And the lines work out well also. It doesn't feel off or anything like that. You still get the same kind of Vader that we saw kind of at the end of episode 3, as well as in the other ones, even though this is kind of a different kind of time period. And it works. It's god damn, fuck you, Vader. And you of course feel for Obi-Wan as everything's going on, and of course now they gotta get Leia back and figure out what to do with that, so we'll see kind of how it works out. Other than the whole kind of bit of pretty much being reminded of Spaceballs for what was going on, even though it was needed, and I'm glad it worked out. It's just, I think it was unintentional in that sometimes when you have a parody of something and Spaceballs with you went over my helmet, it got that vibe out of me, and that doesn't mean it's bad. It was just oh shit, you jumping over, and just interesting to try and see the inner politics of the Inquisitors. And then of course the whole bit with the fucking crazy ass tunnel that didn't really need to be there. Just the confusion and craziness of how many people are in this tunnel and where do they intersect. the Obi-Wan and the Vader parts were like the best parts of this. And that's cool. Hopefully we kind of get more of that. Even though it's kind of weird and I don't like that it kind of mucks with what we've already got in episode 4. We'll kind of have to see how this works out. So those are my opinions on the episode. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.